So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the last session of the FIRE Forum, the Maritime one. My name is Natasha Adoniou, and I'm the project coordinator of the FIRE project, which stands for the European Forum for Innovation and Research in Earth Observation, a project funded by the European Commission. The FIRE Forum 2023 is actually a series of 6 online events, one of each of our target market sectors. And here I would like to remind you all of our 6 sectors, which are agriculture, infrastructure, marine and maritime, raw materials, urban development, and wind energy. We started on Wednesday, and we are finishing actually with this session. And each day we had 2 sessions, in the morning and an afternoon one. This morning, for example, we discussed the wind energy roadmap, and now we gather for the maritime. So in a few minutes, you have the opportunity to discover the FIRE roadmap for the maritime sector. And over the next couple of hours, we will discuss the way forwards with 6 experts from the marine and the Earth observation sector. And here I would like to thank our speakers for agreeing to share their expertise with us and for their time, of course. And I would also like to encourage all of you to contribute actively to the discussion. This is really, a hands-on workshop. We really want your contribution, your input. Feel free to ask questions anytime you want. But it would be very nice if you can rename yourself so we know with whom we are talking. Obviously, keep your microphone off unless your moderator tells you. And feel free to ask the question in the chat. And as you have seen, when you enter this meeting, we are recording it because later on we will put it online. So without further ado, I hope you're comfortable with a cup of tea and a coffee in your hands. And let's begin the session with a very nice video we have prepared, which shows the potential that Earth observation can bring to the marine environment. And later on, my colleague Ruuta Skujina from Evenflow will present the roadmap, and Lefteris Mamais, also from Evenflow, will be the moderator of the day. So thank you so much and enjoy the discussion.
Welcome everyone on my side as well. I hope you enjoyed this little video that sets things up. My name is Lefteris Mamais. I'm co-founder and director at Evenflow, and we have been heavily involved together with our partners, of course, in developing the roadmap that you will listen to in a minute. Today, the whole idea is that we would be triggering discussion through the findings of the roadmap, together with a very nice panel of experts representing different parts of the value chain. And we will organize that in different waves. You will see in a minute what that means. I would just like to reiterate what Natasha said. So you're all welcome to raise your questions in the chat. If it comes to that, and we see that the flow is nice, of course, I will also give the floor directly to someone who might want to ask something. In that case, you would need to introduce who you are and be brief and to the point. But yes, we will be having a very nice discussion. And before we start with the presentation by my colleague Ruuta, I would like to invite the panel to introduce themselves. So opening the floor first to Franz Immler from DGRTD.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Franz Immler. I'm working in at DGRTD, as you already said, so the Department for Research and Innovation in the European Commission, and there in the Healthy Planet Directorate, which has 2 units that are relevant. I think one is actually in ocean and marine, but unfortunately, none of the colleagues could join today, so I'm here probably clearly second choice, but I still hope I can provide some useful inputs to the discussion. I'm head of the sector for environmental observation, so I cover this part, and we also have some activities, so quite a lot actually in the marine domain. So funded from the Horizon program that we are managing here. My background is I'm a physicist and worked in climate observations and later then in the Commission in climate and Earth observation related activities.
Thank you very much, Franz. And you were definitely not a second option. No worries about that. Staying inside the commission, I would like to pass the floor to Zoe Konstantinou.
Hi, Lefteris. So I'm Zoe Konstantinou. I work in the Director General for Maritime Affairs and Fisheries. I'm working on the unit that is responsible for marine knowledge, and specifically my work is related to the management and growth of the European Marine Observation and Data Network and the establishment and development of the European Digital Twin Ocean. Both actions that are directly and indirectly related to Earth observation and to the need for more knowledge in the marine sector. And I'm a marine scientist with a background in integrated coastal zone management.
Thanks, Zoe. We will definitely try to shed light to some of the points that you are covering in the questions later on. Then I would like to ask Manuel Lopez from EUSPA.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Manuel Lopez. I work in EUSPA, in the European Union Agency for the Space Program. I work in the Department of Market Downstream and Innovation, and I'm Senior Technology Officer there. And I've been working in maritime and marine applications since I joined the agency in 2013.
Thanks a lot, Manuel. Passing on to another side of the value chain a little bit, to Juliana CARVAJAL. Hi, Juliana.
Hi, Lev. Hi, everyone. So yes, I'm Juliana CARVAJAL. I'm a European project manager at Pôle, Bretagne, Atlantique. So Pôle, it's an economic development cluster created in 2005, and we manage a network of around 400 members on a triple helix approach in which industries, research centers, and academia work together to develop innovative projects around the maritime innovation. So as a cluster, our aim is to enhance the capacity of companies to innovate, to stimulate growth, and to increase the employment in promising markets. And we have 6 different areas around the maritime innovation. That will be maritime safety, shipbuilding, the marine energies, the marine biological resources, coastal planning and development, and maritime ports and transport. So those areas, as we will discuss further here, help us to develop a booster that we call more space. And in that one, the idea is to promote the development of new services and products, space-based products, to address maritime challenges. So that's why we are very happy to join the session today.
Thanks a lot, Juliana. And finally, Tero Vauraste.
Yes, good afternoon, Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tero Vauraste, representing here EUSPA, the European Association of Remote Sensing Companies, and 136 members of those as a director and a board member, serving full-time with the Finnish Earth observation company ICEYE, with a constellation of more than 20 launched satellites on synthetic aperture radar. I have a maritime background. I'm a former naval and coast guard officer and former CEO of the Finnish icebreaker company Arctia, which operated and operates on the Baltic Sea and in the Arctic areas. Also been chairing the Arctic Economic Council in the past. And I have a degree from the University of Leicester from risk, crisis, and disaster management. So I'm a master of disaster. Thank you.
That's a very nice way to end this introduction. Thank you very much, Tero. Actually, before passing the floor to Ruuta, I would like to also acknowledge that Eva Haas is with us, and she's one of the 2 evangelists in the marine and maritime sector. I don't know, Eva, if you want to present yourself very quickly, or if not, you can also jump in later on.
Yes, I can present myself, unfortunately, without a video today. I'm actually traveling, but I try to be here. It's an honor to be evangelizing for this amazing sector. And A quick introduction to myself. I'm a geographer by education with a focus on remote sensing and hydrology. And the PhD already led me to understanding water resources better. And throughout my career, water has always been my main element I worked on. And I was, very, very happy that I was selected to be the evangelist for this, for the marine sector. And I'm looking forward to a good discussion today. And let's all enjoy this session.
Thanks a lot, Eva. So I pass the floor now to Ruuta Skujina from Evenflow. She will guide us through the roadmap, and then we will follow up with the panel discussion.
Yes, thank you. Do you see the screen? Is everything fine of the presentation? Yeah, great. So thank you for the introduction. I have really the pleasure to present you this amazing sector, as Eva just mentioned. And it is indeed, we did have two EU evangelists here, not without reason, because it does have a large spectrum of applications, and also a very important societal importance, as we know, oceans support life on Earth. But more onto details now. So as you might have seen from the previous presentations, there was a common methodology for all sectors. All started with a primary research, twofold, with deep dive in the particular sector, but also some cross-cutting analysis. This has resulted in sectorial cards, which is one of the deliverables that is publicly available as well on FIRE website. But also in parallel to this work, of course, as you might have known, especially for those who were involved previously, FIRE community was engaged and met multiple times over these last 3 years at FIRE focus groups, at FIRE Forum 2021 and 2022. FIRE EU evangelists set out to do their analysis and meet the sector. So there has been a lot of work, and we had the pleasure to gather all these inputs, analyze them, and what we're proposing today is indeed this sectorial development roadmap. But as well, today will serve for this last point, which is reflections for further work. I hope the discussions will reflect that. So for those who joined just now, there are 6 sectors in FIRE, and today we focus on marine and maritime this afternoon. The structure of the presentation, but also of the roadmap is that, okay, so we first wanted to know where we are now, the state of play, policies, challenges, any R&D trends, of course, with the focus on Earth observation, what is its current contribution. Then the next step was to try to imagine the future. Where do we want to be? What are the priorities? Where should we invest our time, money, brain power? And as well, of course, with EU role highlighted. And from there to there, we have a set of actions, quite high level, that we're proposing as a way forward to bridge between today and the tomorrow. So where we are now, if we look at just some, let's say 3 top selected policies that are there, like United Nations Decade of Ocean Science or EU Mission to Restore Our Oceans, and Strategy for Sustainable Blue Economy. It's clear that oceans and maritime are very high upon the agenda, both at the EU and international global level. Many of these efforts concentrate around building, improving our marine knowledge. There's still a lot what we do not know, but also to improve this resource better, to manage the resource better, and take into account the growing food demand and demand for protein source, healthy fish protein and algae and all that. When it comes to the EU market maturity, While EUSPA market report is indicating a doubling of revenues in the next decade, at the same time, the sector is very, very large, and there are big differences between the maturity when it comes to the some of the applications that are very mature, as vessel tracking or illegal fishing, and then some newer, more upcoming ones as aquaculture. And for research and development, it was mentioned already, and it will hopefully be mentioned multiple times, is the digital twin of the ocean, which is clearly a priority, but also some particular topics that are maybe more underdeveloped still at this stage, or integration between EO and in situ and various new technical capabilities. And what do we want to be? 5 aims, again, quite high level, but still, important, with ocean health being on top of the agenda. Here, Earth observation clearly can contribute to filling knowledge gaps, to creating this more operational, let's say, digital twin. More Earth observation for illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, but also other applications could help to build, to broaden actually the use and also broaden the spectrum of users that could use this. One of the more aim for EO applications would be to set the balance between efficiency and scalability of all these applications. And when it comes to the full Earth observation competence by sector professionals, here sectors such as, for example, aquaculture could clearly benefit from, which is currently going through digitalization, could benefit from more observation in the process. And of course, the societal goals such as sustainability, food security, environmental goals, all those as well are related and are important. So how to get there? For marine and maritime, we have 6 aims. First 3 are more research, development, innovation, and then the other 3 more related to awareness, capacity, and policy. So the very first one is ocean is a system. So here again, digital ocean has to be mentioned. But so further research and development for digital ocean, for marine life monitoring and modeling, but with a focus on user and also use of existing resources is quite important. Secondly, the fostering marine data availability and accessibility. Here, indeed, use of open data or APIs as product results of research and development could be very useful. Similarly to the urban sector, involvement of citizens and NGOs, because clearly marine and maritime sectors are a focus not only of the industries, but also of the general society as it concerns life on Earth. In situ is key. And here, what is important is how it could be done, involving the highest top level technologies, but also data gathering, crowdsourcing, but taking into account standardization and interoperability of things that are created. And the third, supporting those maybe more those topics or those users target which are not at the moment reached. It has been mentioned earlier today during the wind energy session about marine spatial planning and how member states could be maybe eventually receive some help in their update of plan and monitoring of those. So Earth observation could play also a role there. But clearly other topics and other complex areas should be identified and worked on. And then more cross-cutting maybe issues, but one of them to reach the industry players is by showing the value, the really highlighting champions and success stories within the sector to push for widespread adoption and help with the uptake and spread of EO solutions. And here, different tools can be used, attending meetings, of course, meeting marrying professionals, these type of events as FIRE Forum, but also hackathons and acceleration programs. And then, again, a bit more general capacity building, which comes over and over during these sessions as an important element, and training different users along the value chain of the sector would be important to reach the full potential of what this technology can do for the sector and its challenges. Last but not least, similarly to the agriculture sector, where CAP is benefiting from Earth observation and its data, here again, this action is proposing to use more Earth observation in key policies and strategies. The action itself is focused maybe on on European Union level policies, or maybe even regional or local, but Earth observation, EU has a strong role as well on the international stage. So also the EO role could be promoted as well for use of more transparent technology, more for discussions on IUU, tracking illegal activities and such, to address these sustainability concerns. So that is it for me. I will stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Ruuta. This was a very nice and comprehensive presentation. Of course, we should say this is a concise version of the roadmap, and as it has been mentioned many times, the roadmap is for every one of the sectors that FIRE has been targeting. So the whole documentation will become available in different formats so that it can be looked into in digestible formats, in formats that you can spend more time in, and so on. With this, I would like to start the first wave of the panel discussion. And actually, the last point that Ruuta introduced in the roadmap is also the first question that I would like to raise. So I would give the floor to Zoe and try to discuss a little bit the fact that indeed there are many important policy lines and initiatives that DG MARE, and more broadly, if you wish, the Commission has been rolling out. What is the role for Earth observation in there, and how would you see these type of activities going along with some of the points that we have brought up in the roadmap?
Thank you, Lefteris. I'm afraid that if I start mentioning the policies, I will forget something important. But indeed, there are multiple, and they are not all fitting under the responsibility of DG MARE. So we definitely work on the policies that are all the policies that are related with fisheries management and aquaculture management and marine spatial planning. But then we have a lot of environmental legislation in the European level that is handled by our colleagues in the Directorate General for Environment. And they are covering the quality of waters, habitats, biodiversity, multiple aspects where Earth observation can be specifically can help and support and provide input to the member states level and to the regional level, because what we need is that Earth observation is utilized in this level to provide the assessments of the member states for the quality of their environment, to help them support the advice that is provided in Commission level and the recommendation that is provided in Commission level. It's a personal view, of course, but I think that Earth observation should be one of the proposed tools that the Commission and the authorities in the level of the member states use for the implementation of policies. But I don't see it as directly implemented inside the policies as a mandatory measure. We have to remember that the nature of policies is mandatory, and we cannot either in the Commission or in the member states, prescribe exactly how the assessments of environmental parameters or other management parameters in the marine environment is going to happen. But the usefulness of the tool is extremely big, and it needs to be promoted and it needs to become mainstream through excess use, through exactly good examples and good practices of implementation. And for this, I think we have multiple. Your colleague Ruuta already mentioned the very big the use that we do, for instance, in fisheries in order to regulate IUU fisheries, illegal, unregulated and unreported fisheries for the people that are not familiar with the term. I think that the way to make Earth observation mainstream is to establish it in further applications. And as the Commission goes forward with the twin transitions, the green and digital transitions, going towards better environmental policies that are not separate from the industry and separate from the activities, but actually implemented inside the framework of the industry, and specifically here for the blue economy. These tools are going to become more mainstream through multiple digital applications. And there I will come again to developments that are either directly or indirectly related to applications as the European Digital Twin of the Ocean, which will bring the use of the marine knowledge coming from Earth observation, but also coming from in situ, a little bit more in the fingertips of the users. Will make this kind of knowledge more accessible, will create through multiple activities that will come either from research or from industry, the kind of applications that will allow users in positions that until now found the use of this technology is difficult. It will make it more approachable. And from this point of view, it will make it more mainstream and implemented in different sectors of policy. For me, this is the way to achieve this.
Thanks. You know, you're raising many points that I suppose the other panelists will also address in their first and subsequent interventions. You also paint a picture of how effectively market development can work out. And here I would like to bring Manolo in the discussion, since this is precisely the mission of EUSPA. And my question is, which actions is EUSPA already undertaking to promote Earth observation use in the marine and maritime sectors? And how do you see the roadmaps that were presented here aligning with this effort?
Okay, it's a very good question, and in line with what Zoe has explained just right now. We have started in EUSPA analyzing the use cases that we think that can be more promising for the use of Earth observation and that can take more benefits. And we have done for that also an analysis with the discussion and interviews with different key stakeholders that were involved in these use cases identified. And we have organized with them, several interviews, but also a specific, we have used a specific platform that is called the user consultation platform. Is organized together with Commission. And in this platform, we have brought together all these stakeholders, and we have presented the different use cases. But the most important thing is we have been discussing about their needs, their requirements with respect to Earth observation, to see how Copernicus can contribute to the solution, to their applications. So this is one of the things that we have done already. We have this user consultation platform in October, and we have just published the results of this consultation. So this is available already in our website. We have also monitored the market, and we have published as well a market report focused on Earth observation. And there are several chapters dedicated to maritime and also fisheries and aquaculture. Then, okay, we are also trying to use R&D actions so that to see exactly what can be or how the technology can help in this specific application. So we have a specific dedicated Horizon Europe call with 3 topics related to Copernicus. So one that is more focused for authorities, so public sector, and other for the downstream applications. So here I think that this is an opportunity to focus on some of the applications that we have mentioned today. So fish stock detection, for example, or small vessel monitoring, or floating offshore infrastructure monitoring. So okay, we could have several examples, so we can discuss, and we could discuss about that. We have also trying to focus in specific applications where we can see that they could be like an example, can be used as a demonstrator to create awareness about how Earth observation can help in these applications. And for that we have launched a specific procurement, so that is under assessment. And then to make a relation with respect to, it has been presented today in the roadmap, I have to say that we are very much aligned with that roadmap, and we will contribute to that. Okay, so not only in the integrity systems support, also in R&D, in the thematic priorities, also in the demonstrating the value, the added value of Earth observation in different applications, and of course to contribute in the capacity building. So I think that this is something that okay, is important, and we think that from EUSPA can contribute with the rest of the institutional stakeholders.
Thanks a lot, Manuel. It's very nice to have this comprehensive view of the different streams of activity and support you're providing. And you mentioned in the beginning the user consultation platform and the user requirements. So I would like to now flip a little bit the coin and bring Juliana into the discussion, presenting a little bit that perspective, because of course in your case you represent, as you mentioned, a quite large innovation cluster with 400 members. You have also been following FIRE quite closely. So what do you see as key barriers from the perspective of the users then to adopt Earth observation solutions?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Lev. Yes, indeed, it's often very hard for someone that is outside the EO community to understand and foresee what the Earth observation could bring them as a added value. So it's a little bit even harder in the maritime sector because it's a pretty traditional sector. So that's one of the barriers I think that could be a flag for the adoption of the EO in the maritime sector. So all this industry has already, it has been from centuries since the society as we know now. We know that the oceans bring to humanity a lot of resources to be here. So that's one of the barriers. The other thing is that so it's not that easy to help the end users to understand the technologies, and also there are some access of improvement still in the EO technologies to really meet the needs of the end users. So let's say that's why our role, I mean, we are very motivated to continue to do this interface between the technology providers and the end users, because we think that is the barriers that they don't have enough communication, or the link is not strong enough to the technologies to transfer directly from one sector to another. The other thing is, so there is this lack of awareness of the potential of the EO technology, and also as the sector doesn't have these technologies already integrated in their activities, there are some lacking in the skills of the people to use these EO technologies. So yeah, there is a lot of access of improvement of perspectives that we can try to address regarding this challenge to meet both technology providers and the end users, to try to understand the needs, and to meet in that sense, the technology will focus in improving their own products and services to meet those needs. But yeah, I think that those will be the main barriers that we can flag now regarding our experience here. And about the experience in FIRE, we think that that's indeed what we wanted to do, to try to disseminate all the potential of the EO technologies addressing maritime challenges in a whole a wide spectrum of activities in the marine and maritime sector. So that's why we think these kind of initiatives are very important to try to go forward in for the future generations.
Thanks a lot, Juliana. We will definitely get back to many of these points. Later on, the next wave of discussion will focus on implementation, and the notion of having adequate capacity, I guess, on both supply and demand side to meet each other's needs will be a central point. But still on this wave, where the first reactions to the roadmap are effectively being solicited by the different panelists, I want to now turn to Tero to bring a little bit the industry perspective here. And of course, you can also address any of the points that have been raised by the previous panelists, but I would like a little bit to focus more on where do you see more promise, more potential for Earth observation, I guess taking into account lesser barriers or better fit for purposeness and so on and so forth.
Well, thank you very much for the question and addressing a very important area of discussion. So the Earth observation industry as a whole from the European sphere has developed a lot within the past 5 or 10 years. So there's a number of new players in the market that are coming with new innovations, new types of products and services, which really rival the so-called old space thinking, and cost is much lower what it was. Cost per satellite is maybe 10 or 20% or 30% of what it was. So this really brings the Earth observation data available to many stakeholders who have not been in a position to gain it 5 or 10 or 15 years ago. Also, the Copernicus program provides that to researchers to a high extent with actually no cost to the researchers. So that's a great opportunity. But let's go into the oceans and the maritime domain. And I would like to address a topic which has not been discussed yet, and that is the climate change, and especially climate change in terms of sea ice developments. So when you look into what has been the developments, let's start from the Arctic within the past 40 years. The mass of the Arctic sea ice has diminished by 50 to 60% within the past 3+ decades. So we have much less ice, and importantly, the so-called multi-year ice, which means that ice which goes through every year and goes through all the summer. It used to be 15 or 20 years ago more than a half of the whole amount of the ice. Now it's maybe 5 or 10%. And alarmingly, the Antarctica, which actually didn't follow this development that rapidly, is also coming along on a very, very high speed. The average temperatures in the Arctic within the past number of winters has been 5, 6, 7 degrees above the average, and the diminishing of sea ice is really moving rapidly. So what the Earth observation can do here is to provide information to the researchers and provide help and support in understanding how the ice is developing in the Arctic areas. And actually, as you recall, the name of my company, ICEYE, is actually facing this, because the initial business idea of ICEYE was to look into Arctic Ocean ice developments and support the researchers and industries working over there with synthetic aperture radar Earth observation data. And that's where the name of the company is coming from. Secondly, on the Baltic Sea, we already have a work in progress where we provide synthetic aperture radar images to support the icebreaking operations, which are essential both for the Swedish and Finnish maritime sectors, whereas the Baltic Sea freezes to some extent every year. However, the sea ice coverage on the Baltic Sea is also decreasing, but that's not equivalent to easier ice conditions. Actually, lower amount of ice might mean tougher ice conditions for the fleet to operate. So again, Earth observation data can provide important information on which routes it's optimal and which routes is safe for the vessels to plan their voyages. Also, when you look into what's happening with the flora and fauna in the oceans, we've already had a notion about the fact that the fish stocks are moving north, and that is changing the scope of the nature, but also the scope of fishing. And we come to the important notion that within the Arctic areas, actually, you have an area whereas there is only limited regulation. And the risk of illegal fisheries in the Arctic Ocean, when there is less and less ice, is becoming an increasing fact, even though there's a number of agreements being set. And there's also the Arctic Council who is active on this, but the Arctic Council is paralyzed because of Russia's aggression in Ukraine. So they've been put out from the Arctic Council correctly, which means that within the Arctic Council, there is no decision-making capability, so it's paralyzed. However, surveying what's happening over there also, and whether the fishing activities are legal or illegal, there again, the Earth observation operators can provide a lot of support. So there's a number of areas where the Earth observation industry is already, but also there's a lot of opportunities where the Earth observation industry can still support much, much more. And when you also look into the different types of developments in other fronts, like the Pacific Ocean, the challenges are somewhat different. There are also areas where, of course, maritime activity can be very hostile. And for that, actually, and for this area, the EUSPA is setting up a security working group as well, and the industry can support in ensuring safety and sovereignty of countries who operate in a basis of making sure that their borders are being safe. So the Earth observation industry can support on this area as well. We are also working in collaboration with EMSA, the European Maritime Safety Agency, which is a big user of the Earth observation data, and supporting in things like refugees, what's happening on the Mediterranean, to try to safeguard the safety of people over there, but also border control. So again, an example of an institutional collaboration where the industry is supporting the institutions. So a lot of things ongoing, but also a lot of opportunities yet to be explored.
Thanks a lot, Tero. And it's a strong message also that climate change is changing the overall game. And I think this is a nice way to to pass the floor on to Franz, who represents a unit that covers that, and also in some sense, you would be potentially using some of the outcomes of the roadmap to craft future work programs, future opportunities. So how would you see these future opportunities being effectively taking shape, and what can also the community, those that are connected today, expect in the near or maybe not so near future?
That's an interesting question. Thanks for the question. Thanks for this also very nice presentation and the well-elaborated roadmap. My first impression, honestly, was that actually we are very active in these domains already, and has been lots of activities. And I do think, from what I know, as I said, it's not exactly my domain, that this is an area where the Earth observation data that is available and also the use of it is already quite mature. In that sense, I'm a bit surprised that I think Juliana said that people still don't know what is it, how can we use it, how can we access it. But I don't think there's a ship going out today on the sea without knowing already beforehand what to expect in terms of winds, in terms of waves, in terms of sea ice. We have been developing sea ice nowcasts and forecasts already in FP6, I think. And these are now services that are operational. We had projects, or recently also, I remember Blue Applicate was a project that did some research on ocean modeling, ocean observations and modeling, but also developed services for the marine sector. I remember in that case, they focused on polar lows, which was a particular threat for marine activities or maritime activities in the more higher latitudes. And I think their forecast system also went operational. So I think there's a lot of stuff that has been done based on Earth observation in terms of addressing marine safety of operations. Also in the fishing domain, I mean, again, I don't know exactly, but I think we have a very good picture of how much fish is out there, which is the basis of the EU fishing policy, is to assess, observe and assess what is there. And based on this, you have the fishing quota that is given out, purely science-based, by the way. So we know this, and where do we know it from? I guess we know it from observation. So I think it's a quite mature sector, and we have been doing a lot. Also on the first point, you mentioned the system of systems. We had a project in Horizon 2020, which was very successful, Atlantos, which was bringing together a lot of different actors in the observing communities and the marine observing communities. And this was not only a one-stop project that finished and then nothing left, but I heard recently that these networks that they set up are still active, and there was a real improvement of having a more interconnected and interoperable marine observing system. So that's, having said this, I don't think there's nothing left to do. Of course, there's many things that we still need to do. I think there's a big effort, and so we mentioned already with the digital twin ocean, which is, I think, one important activity in that domain. I also fully agree with what Tero said, that regarding climate and what it means, there's still a lot of open questions. There are sea ice is one of them. What's going to happen? We have already a good picture in the Arctic, also based on Earth observation, by the way, what happened the last 30 years. But in Antarctic, it's not so much the ice on the ocean that is worrying, also that, but in particular the one on the land. And we have tipping points with meridional overturning circulation that we definitely still need a lot more understanding and knowledge what's happening before making a more clear assessment of what to expect in the future. So there's certainly a lot of questions also, of course, on marine ecosystems, on plastic pollution, and on alien species. I think these are some of the keywords that I think will be addressed also in future research activities.
Thanks, Franz. I see Tero wants to react, so I think it's nice to have a little bit of interaction. So
yes.
Tero, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. So in 2015 and 2017, we transited the Northwest Passage with the Finnish icebreakers Nordica and Fennica 2 times. And then the ice management was mainly based on RadarSat and Sentinel satellite images, which you could get, you know, every now and then, not even on a daily basis, but maybe, you know, a couple of images per week with areas that you were not able. So this has really changed now. So with the commercial operators being able to provide images, even numerous numbers of day, that really supports the safety of navigation in the Arctic areas. And secondly, I would like to continue your debate on the Antarctic, taking into account the Greenland ice sheet, whereas we're closing to the tipping point as well. And I was just in Greenland last September, and it was really alarming to see what's happening with the glaciers.
Thanks a lot, Tero. Just to also mention, I saw Natasha posted some of the Sentinel economic benefit study cases, and it so happens that one focuses on Greenland. So it's a very nice writing. We are all invited to look into that, and of course it's looking into how Earth observation data, in particular Sentinels in this case, help to bring benefits along the value chain, and obviously the same applies with commercial data. So I think this concludes this first round. We have many nice cliffhangers that we will be looking into in a minute. But the first thing I wanted to look into more, to still somehow be setting the stage for the next steps of the discussion, is related to key organizations, key stakeholder groups that can be part of effectively improved market development efforts. And here I know that EUSPA has been setting up key accounts, is engaging with this type of entity. So I wanted to pass the floor to Manolo to explain a little bit more how this works and what one can expect.
Okay, thank you for the question. So in our strategy, we consider the collaboration with the key stakeholders as something really important to help us defining the use cases where Earth observation can bring a clear added value. Also to create awareness and also to promote the results. We have been analyzing different applications from vessels route optimization, also to coastal spatial planning, for transport, for leisure, for fishing, for aquaculture, for offshore platforms. So the first thing that we have done is to discuss with those stakeholders, and we brought them to the UCP, to the user consultation platform. And okay, we continue collaborating with them. So the idea is to consolidate the use cases that we have already started discussing with them, to consolidate the user requirements related to Earth observation. And okay, I can give you some examples of stakeholders. Okay, from the institutional point of view. So we are in touch with Copernicus and trusted entities like Mercator, with European Union agencies, with EFCA, the European Fisheries Control Agency, with EMSA, the European Maritime Safety Agency, also with CINEA, but we are also in touch with standardization associations for maritime, for example, IMO, the International Maritime Organization, or IALA, the International Association of Lighthouses Authorities. We are also in touch with IT platforms that are integrating Earth observation data, and one of the examples is the platform that is provided in Norway that is called Barent Watch, and they present information using Earth observation data that goes from navigation with ice conditions to aquaculture. So Also, we are in touch with several aquacultural associations. If we move to Aquaculture Apromar in Spain, or we are in touch with the Aquaculture Advisory Council. We are also working with some commercial partners, so CLS, Planetech, that are working in different activities related to fish stock detection. I mentioned already vessel route optimization, so we have Maersk also very interested in these applications. I mentioned offshore platforms, and in the case of wind floating platforms, Iberdrola, for example, is also they have a big interest, and also we are in touch with manufacturers related to AIS or a specific equipment. Okay, the evolution of AIS is BDS, but the important thing of this equipment or these manufacturers is that they are using their equipment so that it's possible also to transmit information that is coming from data analyzed that is coming from Earth observation, basically. So this is these companies are Kongsberg, Saab. So we are touching major stakeholders in specific applications, and this is of course we have just started, and we need to continue collaborating with the different also institutional agencies, and also with the DG MARE, DG MOVE, and DG DEFIS. Because at the end, all the information that we find and the results is also for their interest.
No, absolutely. Thanks a lot. This is really comprehensive, and I hope this also triggers the people in the audience to see how in practice this type of relationships are being built so that eventually real user uptake happens. And I wanted on the same topic actually to also invite Juliana to comment, because again, you represent a membership that has all sorts of entities in there. You mentioned, of course, that it has the corporate side, you have the academic side, and so on. Which best practices for this type of relationship to actually bring real fruit would you be able to share with us?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question and the inputs in that subject. Indeed, as we know that we have these challenges to get the both sectors to work together and develop and achieve the objectives. One of the things that we know that for sure will help to overcome that will be the concrete cases, the proof of the concept that these success studies that could tell end users that the technologies could indeed help them, and that these technologies has a real added value for their activities. So that's one of the things that already in the European Commission they are trying to do it. They have a lot of initiatives here in these the Copernicus relay, all the programs regarding the maritime services that we can use using Copernicus data. So in our case, as you said, we have members from the industry that could be startups, SMEs, or major groups. We have the research centers, and we have also academy. So indeed, in the clusters, you have these different kind of stakeholders that could just bring their expertise or their need or their service or product in order to develop this link between the technologies and the needs. So in the cluster we have this buster that we call More Space. This buster is very focused in indeed promoting the development of space-based technologies addressing the maritime challenges. So that's one of the best practices that we have. We know that this has a enormous potential for maritime sector in the future. So we are working with the National Center of Space Studies in France. So we are working in a specific task, for example, to mapping all the actors that develop EO technologies already in France and also in Europe. We are that way we have already a catalog of services that could match with the ends of the maritime sector. So there are at least 4 actions that we are working on with the government here in France, and the other best practice that we have is to work in European projects. So, for example, we worked last year in a project called MARE, and the idea of the project was to promote a better integration of the Copernicus data, particularly in the implementation of the Marine Strategy Framework Directive. So here in France is the Ministry of Environment that states all the rules and the implementation of the Marine Strategy Framework. And so in that project, we contact all the stakeholders involved in this. So there was experts from different research centers, the National Museum of Natural History, the IFREMER, the Organization of Biodiversity in France. So those people were in charge of evaluate the good status of the environmental. We call that the good environmental status, GIS, and that way you have different descriptors and indicators that help the implementation of the Marine Strategy Framework. So we work with them and we put it in workshops with technology providers, and so we try to engage directly the discussions regarding that subject and how we could integrate and use this Copernicus data just to improve the assessment of all these stakeholders. So we have these kind of projects that are very important to do this link. And the other one I will say could be other projects as, for example, Connectio. We work with ERCS, another cluster in Spain. And so we think that the role of the clusters is very important because as you said, we have this spectrum of different stakeholders, so we can more easily, let's say, even if it is not an easy task, but we already have the people on the table. We can put them on the table to discuss these subjects and develop concrete actions afterwards. So, for example, there in Connectio, we work with European SMEs and we try to help them. They were developing products or services, Earth observation, products and services, addressing maritime and agriculture downstream sectors, and we try to help them to develop their services in Chile and Australia. So in that sense, for example, we do also some workshops with the stakeholders in Chile and Australia that were the end users. For example, people from the fisheries, from aquaculture, for coastal monitoring. We have the marine services there that just was telling their real needs, and the technology providers were there to try to approach that. So I will say that's for now the best practice that I could share with you.
Thanks. No, this is actually very inspiring to hear this type of examples. And of course, whenever one brings up best practice like that, the 2 key questions that at least arise are, how do you keep delivering this best practice once these projects end, and how do others replicate what you have been doing? But we would need a whole workshop in itself just to look into that. Maybe we will a little bit touch that in a moment. But before doing so, I wanted to come back to an earlier point, because of course here we are discussing, for instance, R&D projects, but next to strict R&D activities, there's also a point you brought up, a point that Zoe brought up as well. They need to have capacity for all these type of actors to actually engage in this activity and make the most of it. And especially when we are thinking of things that might sound exotic to many people, like the digital twins of the ocean and so on and so forth. So how would you see, Zoe, the sort of parallel activity to empower the community to make the most of these things? How would DG MARE support that? Is there a role for you in doing so?
Thank you, Lefteris. This is not an easy question to answer, and it's a matter of constant discussion, because efficient capacity building in these matters requires wide engagement across the value chain, and at the same time requires sectorial identification of the needs. So in different parts of the value chain, the needs are completely different for capacity building. And that starts from policy and goes to blue economy and to different actors that require different applications related to Earth observation. And capacity building until now hasn't been developed on the subject. So so much to approach people that are not experts, if I may say. It is a challenging subject. I think that the European Commission in general, not only DG MARE, has a role to play. And the role to play is to engage their own each policy sector, and for us, it's the maritime affairs and fisheries, should engage their own stakeholders and be able to decipher their needs and create the paths for the people that have the capacity to the appropriate actors that can make use of this capacity. I cannot be very specific on how to do it yet, and I can tell you that regarding the development of the digital twin ocean is a question that we pose to ourselves constantly. It is also in order to build good capacity, we also have to manage expectations on what tools can do and what Earth observation can do and what data can do. And I think one of the parts that we need to emphasize when we speak about Earth observation and in situ data is explaining the added value with specific examples, like the ones that Juliana brought forward, for instance, in terms of good practices, valorizing the good practices, and making very clear that in order to have this kind of results and good examples, constant investment in the sectors is required. And the constant investment cannot only come from the European Commission, but has to go further down also in the national and in the regional level. So this is one of the aspects. The other aspect is to determine these specific needs and work individually with different sectors, because marine spatial planners are going to have completely different needs in application for Earth observation and data than the fishery sector is going to have. And in the end of the day, the capacity shouldn't be built around Earth observation as such, but the capacity should be built around the products and the specific services that are targeted to the sector. And so we first have to achieve the easiness of use and the transformation of the marine knowledge into something that is completely relatable for its sector, and then we are going to be able to pass this message and to build efficiently capacity. Again, I think that the policy DGs should play an important role in mobilizing their stakeholders and making this information available to them and providing the tools that will bring this closer to them. And we do actually work on this very intensively. through the collection of data, through the establishment of services like Copernicus Marine and the European Marine Observation and Data Network, through the research infrastructures of the European Commission in the marine domain. So we try to do this, but then more effort is required in the working level.
Thanks. No, this is really, I think, sort of a sober presentation of the difficulty that this entails, and of course the different ways to attack it. And actually, here I want to pass the floor to Tero and try to connect these 2 points. So earlier on we were discussing R&D, and also Franz earlier on mentioned that there has been a lot happening even from the times of FP6. Here we're discussing about capacity, and I'm wondering, when you're looking into what can be a roadblock or sort of a catalyst for an actual operational service to be rolled out into the market, which is precisely the scope of any company active there, how do you go over this hurdle? How do you eventually end up having someone who sees the value, pays for what you're doing, and you have a sustainable service offered to them?
Right. How to go over? So it's to make a tiger jump. It's that easy. But making a tiger jump in the Arctic is maybe not that easy, because tigers don't exist in the Arctic. It's only polar bears. Let's start from the market to address the question. So, by the way, the EUSPA market report is great. So thank you for that, Manuel, and your colleagues. So how that actually approaches the market is notioning the fact that the derivatives market, with added value products for the Earth observation, is 2 or 3 times higher compared to the data market itself. So that is already a reflection of the fact that there is a need for additional information and not just pure data, because that market is already bigger than the data market and is expected to grow and grow more rapidly than the data market itself. And to the research community, to the university community, and the whole research. So I think this gets us back to the very conventional triangle of politicians, lawmakers, decision makers, the research community here, and the industry here, and the collaboration of this triangle. And in the European sphere, I think that this triangle, or the collaboration of this triangle, has developed positively within the past 5 or 10 years. Whether that's the case, especially on our sector, that's even a more bigger challenge, because the Earth observation data and the use of it, as we have discussed, is very cross-sectoral. So we have been speaking about climate change, community research, military stuff. So it's like very cross-sectoral. So what are the hurdles and what are the opportunities? How to jump over of those? So for the Commission, I would like to say that it's still important that within Europe we need to make sure that the market access is global. We are still running behind the US in terms of funding opportunities, even though the Cassini initiative and some others. And yet again, the big problem of simultaneously supporting the industry but not jeopardizing the market. So I'm not completely sure if using 1.3 billion of COVID recovery money into space satellite constellation is really like supporting the market-based economy and development, just like as a notion. So the funding and the support from the institutions and how to address that, that's potentially a catalyst, but it also can be a hurdle. So for the lawmakers, the message is like this. In the specific maritime domain, what are the applications? So importantly, as already discussed, illegal activity tracking, things like dark vessel detection already being making progress, but all of those are based on different types of derivatives. So that means that the industry has to be able to work together and find partners, whereas in many cases one company cannot offer the complete set as a whole over there. Combining SAR data with optical data, maybe LiDAR data, geospatial data, provides you an end user service which is like one of its kind. But for instance, if you look into the challenge of providing these types of services, there's some, I think, 1 million opportunities how to use SAR data. But each of these opportunities then requires own algorithms, own analytics, and one company just simply cannot have 100 analytics teams, 10 or 20 persons of each of them. So we need to focus down and find special partners for that. So it's market access, it's funding, the collaboration with the institutions and how they support, and the product development in collaboration.
Thanks a lot, Tero. And you mentioned this connection in this triangle between the policymakers, the R&D community, and the industry. And
yes,
here I would like to ask effectively how this triangle can also work in some sense beyond traditional R&D work. And I mean, I'm aware of the missions, for instance, or maybe Franz, you can guide us a little bit through, how sort of mission-oriented research can then bridge into the market and effectively see all these user needs that we have been hearing from everyone being met in an operational way and in a sustainable way.
Okay, thanks for the question. I think actually in Europe we're quite good in making this triangle effectively work together. I remember in the Geo Week there was a colleague from America, and he said it. He said, in Europe you're really good in getting the private sector involved into your research projects. And according to him, in the US, that's not so well developed. And indeed, the Horizon program is a program that really encourages the involvement of research organizations together with private companies in one project and develop solutions that then, for example, an SME that is part of the project can commercialize. And I'm not sure this is always a big success. I mean, there are successes, but I think when it comes to commercialization, that's probably where in the US they do a better job. And it would be interesting to understand better why. Part of the issue is maybe also, I mean, I think we have a lot of capacity in Europe on Earth observation. It's really world leading what we provide with Copernicus, with many other systems that we have in place. The meteorological satellites are amazing. I just had EUMETSAT here this morning, and they tell me that the generation they are now putting in place in the coming years, the third generation Meteosat, are 15 years ahead of what the US is doing in that domain. So we are really world leading. We have a lot of capacity. I think we also have a lot of companies that are extremely good and very well in developing tools and in exploiting this data. So I think it's all there. And I think there's also a lot of success story where it works. Maybe, as I said, commercialization is not our strength sometimes, probably also because the public sector is a bit dominant. We had this question yesterday, so where is room for the private sector if everything is covered in the public domain already? That could be actually one of the problems, I don't know, to be explored. To address your question, to go beyond, indeed, one limitations that we have in our projects related or project-based funding activities is that we always have, a limited time frame. We have some nice activities developing, and after 3-4 years, it's finished, and it's often a challenge to maintain and to sustain what has been developed. So how can we build new tools or new ways of approaching this? Actually, there's one thing just coming up, the partnership Sustainable Blue Economy that has been launched, I think, just last week or 2 weeks ago in Rome. So partnerships are a different tool that have a more long-term perspective. It brings together also, and that's another limitation I find we also a bit weak in pooling the resources from the member states, from the different actors. That's exactly what the partnership is doing. So it brings together the level from the member states plus some additional capacity or money, simply speaking, from the Commission. So, and it really mobilizes a huge range of different actors from the research area, from the authorities side, so from the administrative side and from the private side. So it's something to keep an eye on what's happening there, and it leverages also a lot of funding. I was a bit surprised to hear in the US there's more funding available. I think in leveraging funding we're not that bad, and there's certainly the partnership will help leverage a lot of funding for the sustainable blue economy, so for this domain. So something to be looked at. I think we're also pretty good. Today I have my positive day, so I'm just lauding ourselves in international activities, because that's when it comes to the ocean or to the maritime sector, it's very important is the international collaboration. And with Horizon Europe being the only big research program in the world that is open to participation from everyone, we have the All Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance, which brings together European research with, and not only research, but also private companies, innovation, European with North American, with African, with South American. So I think that's also a good example, and it's very important to also collaborate on this international domain. GEO is also a very important forum for bringing together the actors, also private sector actors, to collaborate at a global level. So I think there's a lot of bits and pieces. Probably sometimes it lacks a bit the overall coordination, which is a big challenge, and not something the Commission can do. I always hear the Commission can do this and this. We have less and less stuff every year, so it is a challenge to address all the requests that we see coming. But I think we try our best. So in short, please have a look at the partnership if you're not aware of it. I think that's a really good new opportunity. We had mentioned already the digital twin, another big good opportunity for bringing together a lot of different things into one comprehensive system that serves many users, hopefully, in the future. And of course, there's many other activities that you mentioned Cassini, there's a lot of other funding opportunities, also the Maritime Fisheries Fund, and so on and so forth. I stop here because I see 2 hands up. And
thanks, Franz. No, and I didn't know, for one, about the partnership having been launched already. I knew it's in the making, but thanks for sharing that. I see Tero and Juliana. I saw Juliana for a moment raising it before Tero and then raising it again. I don't know if it's a different thing that you want to say, but maybe you can start, Juliana. Sorry for this, Tero.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Tero. And left. Yeah, it was on the same subject. So thank you for all of that, Franz. Indeed, it's very interesting to see how you see this holistic, let's say, vision of how we can just work together to develop things. Just a quick react on the international part. Indeed, for us, that's very important. Even if as clusters we are very, our aim is to help our regions and our community here locally, because we know that the impact will be stronger here. But we know when we talk about the ocean, there is not barriers or frontiers. So everything that happens in the coast in Brittany goes to Galway, goes to Colombia, goes to Mexico. So it is important to have this international approach. I think that that's very, very interesting. And I have a question for everyone, because now we are talking a lot about this helix innovate for the innovation ecosystem, that it's business, R&D, government, and society. That is the four pillar. And now I mean, when you talk about maritime innovation, there is a lot of, not a lot, but a part of the population that that feel concerns about what is happening in the planet and in the ocean. And I don't know how we can, maybe it is too early for Earth observation, because again, it's a complex subject. So try to understand the added value, even for end users that are already targeted. It's not that easy to get them involved and to believe in the potential of these technologies. So that will be maybe even harder to just civilians to understand the potential and all of that. But I don't know. I just want to know how do you see this in the future? That mean for everyone, and everyone can take the question. And yeah, the society, how we can do this, because for example here in France there is an SMEs, I don't know, it's a private organization that you can just buy shares, and it calls Time for Planet. And these people, just so you pay and you buy the shares there, and then they are just trying to found projects to mitigate the climate change. So it's really engage civilians in R&D and to get to concrete solutions at the end. So I don't know, what do you think about it? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Juliana. I don't know if Tero, you also want to bring up the points, and then we open the floor for anyone to address any of the points raised.
Thank you. 3 points to Franz. So first of all, I agree on the discussion which you had yesterday on the like the private and institutional market challenge in Europe. So for a commercial operator, there are easier markets than Europe somewhere else in the world, and the room seems to be diminishing, where I think that to some extent this initiative which I mentioned is an example. Secondly, considering the funding, yes, there has been good initiatives like the Cassini and some others. However, we conducted an internal review with ICEYE on how things have developed in the US and in Europe. And based on what we found, especially for startups and maybe for scale-ups, there are mechanisms that are backed up by the US government, either through the federal government or state organizations, that provide much more access compared to what you on general level have in Europe.
Thanks, Tero. Would anyone want to react to the point about the involvement of, I guess, the citizen pillar that Juliana brought up? Or of course, if Franz, you have any response to the points that have been raised as well?
I could say maybe a few things. Well, it's interesting if this study says it's quite possible that in US there's more public funding. My impression was also in US there's a lot more private funding for startups. And if there's also more public funding, then we are certainly ways behind in funding or risk funding for startups, for new developments, for innovations. And that's certainly an issue that we should look at very, very closely. On the citizen involvement or citizen, I think there's some interesting initiative happening. There's one that we co-sponsor, which is called Plastic Pirates, which is another example where to engage particularly young people to it's actually engaging them in, I think it's not, I don't know too many details, in observing what's happening, going to the sea, try to look at the problem. And this is, of course, raising awareness among people to understand better what's happening in the environment. I think that's very important, to keep an open eye on these developments. I think more and more people are really being aware that things are changing, particularly in the oceans. Tero mentioned the sea ice. People who fish in the high north, probably for them it's they see it on their daily basis that the ocean change, and people living in Greenland see the amazing changes. Of course, for us living in Brussels, we don't see it every day. Okay, we had a very warm January and a very hot summer and very dry summer last year. So we also, it's more and more evident. So I think that's important, but that's not enough. And I'm a bit skeptical about this. I'm not sure exactly what you meant, this offsetting type of scheme. It's a bit trying to say, okay, I put some money somewhere, I paid a bit on offsetting, and now the problem is solved. I'm a bit skeptical because I don't really believe this will solve the problem. It's still, of course, it's good that people do this. I wouldn't discourage anybody, but it's probably maybe helpful, but it's probably not the solution as such. So, but I think the citizen engagement activities are very useful.
Thanks, Franz. No, and I'm definitely going to check what Plastic Pirates does after this this meeting. We are now entering the last part. First of all, before actually we do so, I would like to thank all those that are posting things on the chat. So thanks to Juliana for bringing to the attention of everyone the Protect PCP project, which is a seminal effort in relation to pre-commercial procurement for specific, I guess, climate change adaptation aspects using Earth observation data and solutions. So big thanks there. Now, in a sort of self-reflection, and self, I don't mean myself, but rather the FIRE team and the FIRE project overall, and echoing the earlier concern about how things can stay alive and keep delivering value after the end of a project. We have been trying to bring the voice of the user in FIRE at the center of our activities and sort of imbibe whatever comes inside the roadmap also with this type of voice. We heard from pretty much everyone. We heard about deciphering user needs. We heard about the user consultation platform from EUSPA. We heard about how things can be working inside an innovation cluster. We heard about the different projects and how they bring that in. So my question is, how can we do that better? Because, and here is my personal feeling, even if the intention is great, the result of really having the users adequately involved is not always great. Does anyone have any good idea to share here? So this is a rapid fire round. If any one of the panelists or even the audience wants to jump in on this, feel free. I mean, I will be giving the floor, of course, but yes, thanks. Manolo, you go first.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, you mentioned the user consultation platform. So this is the mechanism that we have agreed with the Commission to gather the interests of the user and to gather the needs. And the purposes are several. So it's to understand how our services can contribute to their applications, to discuss about different use cases, but also to propose new products, to commission new services that needs to be provided, or evolutions of the existing services. So, and this is something that is important. So if we know that, for example, Copernicus is not able to provide all, I would say, all, or to fulfill all the requirements for a specific application, we need to think about how to complement Copernicus, or how to evolve Copernicus in the future. And I think that it's important to gather first the information coming from the users. This has a lot of added value. Then how to improve the process? Okay, we are on the way to improve it. Yes, we are doing the user consultation platform every year now, and yeah, we are focused on different applications, but we are trying to do our best from EUSPA.
Thanks, Manuel. Tero, you wanted to intervene?
Yeah, thank you. I think it comes to the customer experience and putting it forward, actually a consumer experience. So how accessible Earth observation data really is today, it's actually not very accessible. It's much more accessible compared to what it was 5 or 10 years ago. But if you or I, as a consumer, as a citizen, want to go for Earth observation data, it's not that simple at the moment. So we should have it accessible in applications in cell phones with an affordable price. So this comes down to like the democratization of the data, which I would actually say that it's being executed by the commercial players. If you think of what the commercial players are doing, so we think that we are driving the development for that it's becoming more and more frequent, more and more accessible, and the economical conditions for that are approaching the levels which can also be addressed by Citizen X.
Thanks, Tero. Zoe, you wanted to also pitch in?
I wanted to agree very much on Tero on the level of, so the information needs to be very accessible, very cheap, and in a form that will fit the different needs and that will adapt in the requirements. And especially when we speak about users that come from society, there needs to be a quite elaborate development process in the applications. And some of the users' needs are going to come up because of great challenges that we have to face, and because of the visibility that we need to bring to these challenges. This is happening already, and there are a lot of processes that are taking place at the same time. So different priorities in terms of policy in society come up, and the needs are developed, are also developed at the same time. And this will bring these applications forward. And I think that in the next 5 years, we will see a lot of development of this kind, and a lot of incorporation of these users' needs into two new digital tools that will bring Earth observation and marine knowledge forward.
Thanks, Zoe. Speaking of incorporation of user needs, I guess, Franz, by pasting the co-design process in eShape, you wanted to bring this up as a good practice. I don't know if you want to say a few words.
Well, I think I mentioned it already in the other sessions where I had a chance to. What I hear, I'm really not, probably a bit too far away from that, but from what I hear, this methodology that eShape has developed to design their services based on user needs was very successful. It has been picked up also by Geo now and others. So I think the tools are there. The methodology is developing. It's what I hear. It's still often a long way. If I don't know, oceanographer talks to a fisherman, it's two people talking to very different languages. So it's always a challenge to really understand the user, starting with the language, starting with understanding what their issues actually are. So it's always a long way to go, and it's not self-explaining. So you ask a user and that's it. It's not enough. It's really, it takes translation. It takes really taking people along. But I think we went quite a way in the past. I think there was a lot in the past, so to say, supply-driven research, and people were putting all sorts of products on the market, so to say, and then looked if there's anybody out there who wants them. And I think that has already changed quite a bit. So this idea of really involving the user from the beginning is much more advanced, but there's probably still quite some way to go.
Thanks. No, that's I mean, we are ourselves quite heavily involved, so I'm pretty aware about this, but it's good that the audience also hears about this notion of co-design. Juliana, you wanted to also contribute here?
Yes, just a quick react on that, because I already talked about this in the first part of the session, so I don't want to repeat my insights on that, but just to say that indeed this cross sector is very important, because as Franz was saying, people with different backgrounds and different objectives and different markets don't easily will understand each other. So that's why it's important to have these like umbrella organizations or interface stakeholders that could do the link between the different sectors and try to promote the really identification of the needs and the understanding between sectors and kind of stakeholders, because exactly everyone is seeing things in a different perspective regarding their own objectives and backgrounds. So that will be a thing to dig on, to try to overcome and to do it the best way possible.
Thanks for this reflection, Juliana. I also see there was a question by Ornella, and I suppose Tero has somewhat answered that. But if Ornella, you want to raise it also in the open and maybe say who you would want to raise it to, but
yeah, sure. I'll elaborate quickly. Thanks. So in this case, I see that there is the marine sector actually has few users having the needs to apply these EO applications that are wonderful. I think it's a market where there is more push from the EO sector than pull, and an out-of-the-box idea that I once heard on a design thinking workshop, and it's a bit far-fetched, and maybe, as Tero says, also idealistic. Why not an international marine station, like we have an international space station, that would be the user of all these EO applications? That would be wonderful for saving the biodiversity and tackling the melting of the ice caps. But of course, it's idealistic. I just wanted to hear your opinions.
Yes, Tero, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, as expressed in the chat, this has actually been researched. I'm aware of one research which is conducted by Professor Paul Berkman, then in the University of Tufts, joined now another university at a later stage, where he actually made a plan for such a station, which would have been a multi-use station, opportunities for research, commercial use, and some other stuff. I think it's a nice and idealistic idea, but taking into account that the countries facing the oceans at the moment are in tension with each other, and also there's like jealousy, if you like, in terms of the Earth observation data and the sources for that. I would really love to see that develop, but unfortunately, maybe I'm over realistic here, and I don't think that it would be taking place today or tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow.
Yeah, that still sounds good if it's the day after tomorrow. A final question, still in this self-reflective mode, because I see, and I hope I'm catching the sentiment correctly, that you do appreciate the effort that has gone into FIRE and the production of this roadmap. But the question to all the panelists is, how is this going to help your work? You know, is it something that can really become, in some even small, degree, part of what you're doing going forward. So if you can have a quick reaction to that, because this would, I mean, and you don't have to say this is fantastic or anything like that. You can be over realistic here as well if you want.
I could kick off.
Yes, please.
I could kick off that one. Yeah, I mean, here, as I said, we have this real objective of promote the development of the services and products, space-based technologies to address the maritime sector. Maritime challenges, sorry. So indeed, that's why we participate in we are glad to participate in this kind of initiatives and projects, because as we talked today, it's not an easy task to get all the people involved in this in the same table, and it is not easy to come over to the barriers, and that's why spreading the word, that the thing that you try to do with the evangelist, and just trying to set a concrete roadmaps for each sector, it's already in our sense something very positive, because this is something that it's concrete. For example, the videos that you have also are very easy to understand, and I think that everyone could just get at least the general idea about how Earth observation technologies could help or support the maritime sector in a way. So in our case, we really enjoy to participate in the project. Of course, nothing is perfect, and there are a lot of axes of improvement, but I think that if all the people that work here in the community that you already built in their own roadmaps, these objectives are described, of course that the idea will be not to lose all the path that you already have done until now, but improve it. How we can do it, I don't know. Because we already talk about all the best practice and all of that, but we know that in real life, it's not that easy as it sounds. So yeah, but I think if people, the community that you already have, and the clusters and the people that are the stakeholders that are involved in these thematics are already they have the objectives to go forward with this. I mean, brainstorming and try to get the funding and the more people involved, and yes, arrive to more concrete things.
Thanks, Juliana. I see Franz has unmuted himself, so maybe you want to comment on what to do next?
Me?
Yes.
Well, I was just thinking, if I now say loudly that I really like your roadmaps, you may think this is already the formal acceptance of this deliverable by the Commission.
Indeed.
So, small disclaimer, it is not, but that's not because I don't like them, but it's not my job. It's that's done in the executive agency, and I think you have a new project officer because Isabel left. I'm not sure, but I'm not worried about this. I think you did a great job, and also I think it's very good and very useful that you convene these meetings and bring together a lot of people. I see there's more than 40 today. It's Friday afternoon. That's quite good. And there was, I think, even higher attendance in the other sessions. I think that's very useful. You mentioned in your roadmaps also very nicely the various, how you call it, actors that should be acting and should be using this. And it's quite a wide range of people. So I think it will be important to really still make efforts to disseminate this and mobilize those actors. And I'm pretty confident that also in the Commission, but also hopefully also elsewhere, this is looked at, and I think it certainly triggers ideas and initiatives to move forward in this and the other domains.
Thanks for the kind words, Franz. Zoe?
I'm not going to repeat the usefulness because it is it is considered for me as a given, taking the fact that we are here as well. I want to comment with the fact that one of the problems that that is it is obvious for you, but it's also for other projects, is that a lot of effort is put in a specific period of time, and it's really difficult to maintain continuity when the project is over and the results are set in a repository. And I think the way to move forward is to spend some time before the project finishes to engage with initiatives that have the same goal, and to make these results visible and live through these initiatives as well. We are very used, all of us, and we in the Commission are not an exception, to work in our little bubble and not have the time to extend into a wider network in order to help others build on what we have done, or to make these connections. And this is, I think, something that will be very helpful for you. And I will repeat myself, but I think that the multiple activities that are going to take place under the Digital Twin of the Ocean initiative are going to support this kind of engagement and wider collaboration of the community.
Oh, that's great to hear, and I can reassure you that with the leadership of Natasha, we will definitely keep pursuing this type of synergies and collaborations. If Manuel or Tero want to have a reaction to that, you are not obliged. Yes, please, Manuel. Okay, so for us, okay, I want to comment a couple of things. So the roadmap that this project is bringing is very well aligned with the activities that we are doing. And so we of course are going to take this input as part of our strategy. For us, it's also important to strengthen the collaboration with different stakeholders. This is something that we need to do when there is a new application that is coming up, and then when we see that there is a potential to exploit any of the, I would say in this case, Copernicus, any of the EU space data. So for us, is important to follow, and so from our perspective, we invite those I would say partners that from FIRE, and also the community that you have built around, to continue participating in the activities that we have. In the case of EUSPA, also the user consultation platform, but also we are launching R&D calls related to Copernicus. So I think that is not at all the end. We are just starting. So I see a lot of things to be done. So I encourage you to continue doing this good work. Thanks, Tero.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a bit like a general comment, but it reflects to this one as well. So commercial operators need commercial viability, and commercial viability and common good don't always meet. So whenever we have a roadmap which is for the common good, and there is commercial viability, that is attractive to the commercial operators. If the common good is on a high level and like required by the society, then it's the turn of the institutions to come into play with a way that would not like jeopardize the market-driven approach, but securing the commercial viability if the commercial operators are welcomed and needed on a roadmap like this, or some equivalent.
Thanks. No, that's a very poignant point. Thank you very much. With this, and being aware that we're 2 minutes away from 4 o'clock, I would like to close the panel part. Thanks to everyone for contributing to this. I think it was a very nice discussion. And I'm passing the floor to Natasha to conclude all the proceedings. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Lefteris. So that concludes indeed the Maritime session. I would like to thank Ruuta for presenting the roadmap, but also Zoe, Juliana, Franz, Manuel, and Tero for your time and valuable contribution. But also I would like to thank you, Lefteris, for the moderation. But that also ends the FIRE Forum 2023, which is the culmination of the FIRE project. So over the past 3 days, we had the opportunity to connect online, obviously, and discuss the 6 FIRE roadmaps. I would like to thank all our 36 panelists and moderators who have shared their expertise and insight with us. But also I would like to thank our 432 actual participants, actual attendees for joining us the discussion. So for us, that's a very, we're very happy for that. But it's actually with mixed emotions that I bring, wait a second, now I will bring the FIRE Forum 2023 to a close, because this is actually our last event. The project is officially concluding at the end of this month after 39 months on fire. Because, all these months we were playing with this, we're on fire, the week on fire. So on one hand, we, the FIRE team, we are sad to see it coming to an end. But on the other hand, we are grateful for the opportunity to have been shaping altogether the future of Earth observation in Europe and better understanding the user needs. And especially for this last part, we're very happy and proud. The FIRE had as a goal to build a strong community and a well-defined process that captures the now and shapes the tomorrow of the European Earth observation sector, which lead actually to a strategic roadmap for the future of Earth observation in Europe. And I'm very happy and proud to confirm that the FIRE team has accomplished it. But how? So now I will give you some very nice statistics, because I really like the numbers. During the 3 years of the project, we had the great pleasure to work closely with 7 sector leads. So here I would like to thank all of them, the colleagues from Copa Cogeca, Wind Europe, the WIA, from Pôle, MARE, CNES, from EIT Raw Materials, and SMERF/NOAA from Greece. So we have been also organizing 2 focus group events where we gathered the needs of 145 industry experts from 80 countries. But also we had a novelty, the FIRE Evangelist program. So we had these 7 FIRE influencers who advocated the potential of Earth observation in more than 14 events. And I'm sure they will carry on doing it even after the end of this project. So again, here I would like to thank Elias, Miriam, Lucy, Eva, Juan, Irene, and Remco for their amazing work. Really, I truly believe that your legacy will stay beyond the project, because you will always be our very first evangelists. We also organized 3 FIRE Forum. In the first one, 2021 in June, we discussed the challenges of the 6 FIRE users community, and also presented the highlights from the first round of the focus group discussion. In the second one, last June, we started with the results of the second round of the focus group discussion, and then we focus on cross-cutting topics. In this one, we gathered to discuss, as you've noticed and seen, the output of this project, the roadmap of the research innovation strategy of EU in Europe for each of the 6 FIRE sectors. But all this wouldn't have been materialized without the support of the European Commission. Its funding really made our idea a reality. So we moved from a proposal to a project. So a big thank to the European Commission. And of course, that's my more emotional part. I would like to thank the FIRE Dream team and all the partners from EUSPA, Evenflow, Vauraste, and NOAA, whose support and commitment have been fundamental, not only for this last event, but for the whole project. We had a really amazing collaboration over these 3 years, and we have achieved great results, which will inspire for sure our future work. So we are not planning, to close everything somewhere and not use it again, the contrary. So at the end, I would like to thank you all once again for being part of the FAIRE community and working together with us in shaping the future of Earth observation. And for sure, we will continue the interaction even after the end of the project. So thank you so much. Have a nice afternoon. And who wants can stay offline to, celebrate and say goodbye. Thank you.